Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Tom Miller. I am the CEO of Leaders Building Leaders and the author of the 10 Indicators of High Performing Charter Schools. In this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about where schools fail, and it's probably not where most people think. I want to talk about the conversations that boards avoid and why and how schools pay the price. So roughly 40% of charter schools close by year 10, and amazingly 55% close after year 20. And it's not because of what's happening in the classroom, everybody. It's because what's tolerated in the boardroom. And I spent years working with charter schools as a board member, an authorizer, and as a leader brought in when schools are already in trouble. And I could tell you with confidence. Schools rarely fail suddenly. They fail quietly over time when the hardest conversations are avoided. And what I see most often is this, that boards don't avoid responsibility, they avoid discomfort. So instead of addressing leadership capacity and accountability, boards chase safer, more solvable problems, reports, gaps, operational fixes, while the most consequential conversations go unspoken. And here's what's important to understand. Most boards don't avoid hard conversations because they don't care. They avoid them because they're trying to be supportive. They're volunteers. They're mission driven. They want the school to succeed. But over time, something subtle happens. Boards begin to replace hard conversations with safe ones. Instead of asking questions about leadership capacity and accountability, they just ask for more reports or surveys or maybe consultants to come into the room. Instead of addressing that misalignment at the top, they focus on gaps that just seem easier to fix. Instead of challenging assumptions, they manage around them. And none of this looks like failure in a moment. It looks like activity. It looks like engagement. It looks like a board that's doing its job. But over time, avoidance creates a drift in expectations, a drift in accountability, a drift in clarity about who's really responsible for what. And the most dangerous part, avoidance doesn't show up in a dashboard. You won't see it in the test scores right away, and you won't catch it in any compliance report. But eventually, it shows up everywhere. And underneath this pattern, this quiet drift, there are two assumptions I see boards make again and again, and they're rarely spoken out loud, but they shape almost every governance decision that follows. The first assumption is this, that the parents will do their homework. Now, that if someone is willing to serve on the board, that they'll naturally understand governance. And the reality is, governance is not intuitive. Being committed to a mission does not automatically mean being equipped to govern it. Good intentions don't translate into strong oversight. And passion alone doesn't prepare someone to ask hard questions under pressure. Most board members were never trained to govern. They were invited to serve. And when training and clarity are missing, boards default to what feels safest. Which brings me to the second assumption, that our head of school has enough experience and training to lead. Now, experience matters. Don't get me wrong, but experience is not the same as readiness. A title does not equal capacity, and longevity does not guarantee the ability to lead through complexity, conflict, and constraint. Now, I've worked with many talented, hardworking charter school leaders who were deeply committed, but yet still extremely overwhelmed. Not because they were failing, but because they were never fully equipped for the role they were asked to carry. And when boards assume capacity instead of verifying it, support quietly replaces accountability. Trust replaces clarity. And governance becomes reactive instead of strategic. Now, there's a phrase I often use in this work, and trust without verification is usually built on assumption. And when these assumptions go unexamined, something important happens. The boards lose their ability to tell whether governance is actually strengthening the mission or simply maintaining the organization. That's why I've started using this question as a governance test. It's not a comfortable question, but it's a clarifying one. And I usually introduce it carefully because how you hear it matters. Okay, so here's the question. If your school did not exist, would anyone care? Now, let me be clear about what this question is not. It's not a marketing question. It's not a funding question. And it's not a compliance question. It's a governance question. Because what it really asks is this: is the mission of this school strong enough, clear enough, and valuable enough that its absence would leave a meaningful gap? And if the honest answer is, I'm not sure, it doesn't mean that you're failing. It means that you uncovered a signal that the board may be protecting activity more than impact, or stability more than significance. So this is where I see the most important shift that takes place on high performing boards. Now, that shift is identity. Many boards operate with this belief that we're just volunteers. And to be clear, volunteer service matters. But when that belief becomes an identity, it lowers expectations. It softens accountability. It makes hard conversations feel optional. High performing boards, they operate from a different belief. They operate from, we are strategic partners in the school's success. Strategic partners understand that the mission is too important to be protected by comfort. And that belief changes the questions boards are willing to ask. In strong governance rooms, two questions show up consistently. First, are we asking the right questions? And second, do we have the right people in the right places to answer them? Those questions require courage. They also require and create clarity. And clarity is one of the greatest gifts a board can give its school leader. So I want to bring us back to the question that we touched on earlier, not as a diagnostic this time, but as a personal reflection. If your school did not exist, would anyone care? Would families feel the loss? Would students lose something meaningful? Would a community be diminished in a real way? Because strong boards don't exist simply to keep schools open. They exist to ensure that the mission matters. And that mission is strong enough to withstand discomfort, challenge, and hard conversation. Strong boards don't protect the organization as it is. They protect the mission it exists to serve. That's the work of governance. And it's the work worth doing well. I hope that this message added value to you. And I wanted to share, it's a passage in a section from my book, The 10 Indicators of High Performing Charter Schools, where I devote a whole section, a whole chapter to governance. If you'd like a copy, you can go to 10indicators.com, or you can search Amazon for the 10 Indicators of High Performing Schools. If you want to, in the notes or in the comments, leave me a comment of what added value to you. What maybe made you a little uncomfortable. Remember, governance and leadership doesn't improve through good intentions. It improves through better conversations. And if you want to keep exploring what strong governance actually looks like, again, highly recommend that you grab a copy of my book and share the framework that's built in the 10 indicators of high performing charter schools. Wherever you take it next, don't let that question go unanswered. If your school did not exist, would anybody care? Because the future of your school is already being shaped by the conversations you choose to have or choose to avoid. Keep making a difference, everybody. Now, this has added value to you. Make sure that you mash the subscribe button, as my son will say, or you hit the like button to make sure that you get notifications when the next episode is released. Bye-bye.